Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Back on the trail and back on the beach, still doing plenty of Baltimore positive stuff. You can hear from Mary Miller, Mary Washington, and all of the mayoral candidates out at Baltimore Positive. And when we're not talking about that these days, it certainly doesn't feel like the Combine or even the Terps have the teeth that this baseball story has. And we're here in the land of pleasant living. Dave Sheinin has been my friend for going on a quarter of a century, covering all things Olympics, baseball, Orioles history, and now, well, the scandal of all baseball scandals is one of the lead writers at the Washington Post. But don't let that fool you. He does live here in Baltimore. Dave Sheinin, always good to have you back on the program, dude. You were down in Florida, and I apparently not working on the tan while you were down there, working on. Look, you've been covering baseball a long time, and I'm really concerned for how this has been led by Manfred all the way down and what it means for the Orioles and every other franchise. But this is really, really an unseemly time, and certainly something we're talking about here that I can't stop talking about because it's hideous.
Well, it is. It's hideous, and it's extraordinary, really, to see the sport, burning down in this way. I mean, there are a lot of parallels between this and the steroid scandal. The one difference is that, this is team-wide, and you essentially have 29 teams out there attacking, with unbridled passion, one team. And, that sets it apart for me. It's really extraordinary to hear, union members going after fellow union members in this way, to take on the commissioner in such, vivid language. It's an extraordinary story, and I suspect it's not going away anytime soon.
Look, at top to bottom, we always talk about leadership around here, right? And what makes the Cleveland Browns the Browns, what always made the Clippers the Clippers, and what's made the Orioles, quite frankly. Leadership in Major League Baseball. I mean, this has been at the heart of what you and I have covered and talked about, from Bud Selig throwing out Fay Vincent, through canceling World Series, to feuding with players, to steroids, to corked bats and Albert Bell and Jason Grimsley climbing through, and then there's the sandpaper and scuffing balls and Phil Niekro and Gaylord Perry and, and then the unwritten rules. Then there's this, right, with apparently wearing a wire, right? So all of this, it wasn't lost on me, Dave, but my wife and I were sitting one Sunday morning about a month ago, and she said, explain this to me. And it was literally when the wire thing happened on Altuve, and we watched it sort of aghast, and we're like, wow, how are they going to talk their way out of this at this point?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great question. I mean, I'd love to see what Major League Baseball found. They claimed, all they said in the report and all that the commissioner has said is that, there was no evidence that occurred. I would love to go back and be able to read the interview transcripts from the investigation and to see, what they determined, from the video that you're referencing of Altuve crossing home plate and admonishing his teammates not to rip off his jersey. I'd love to read, the raw notes and raw materials from the investigation, which unfortunately we don't have. I still don't know if that happened or not. I go back and forth on, I think one thing to keep in mind is that the granting of immunity came with the provision that if they were caught lying, the penalties would be massive, and I mean massive in the sense that John Coppolella, the former Braves GM, was banned from baseball, not necessarily because of what he did, but because he lied about it to, the investigators. So, the penalties would be severe, up to, I think, on the table would be the penalty of banishment, So with that in mind, would you take that risk if you really did that? And it's not even a year where you won the World Series and that could be taken away from you. This is 2019 when they lost the series. So I have that doubt in my mind about the validity of that allegation.
Dave Sheinin joining us here from the Washington Post, of course, Baltimorean. We can talk Olympics and his music career, and man, they're killing your music career with this story. You're going to be following this thing. I've talked to a lot of people, and in the last 6-8 weeks, I've talked more baseball. Even in Kobe's death and being at the Super Bowl down in Miami for a week, it feels like this baseball story. For those of us who love baseball, my last name's Aparicio. I built this whole thing for 30 years around baseball and my love of baseball, and the integrity part of this, from where we're asking the commissioner to be the judge, the jury, the executioner, the policeman, the representative of the owners, the representative of the fans, if there is such a thing, the representative of the sport to the media as to what he's going to say, calling the championship a piece of metal, and just all of this has felt so unseemly to me that, I get that they want to wash it away and sweep it under the carpet and make it go away by opening day. That's just not where we are. I don't even know that we've reached daylight on the 24-hour life cycle of this one, where guys like you are asking lots of questions, guys like me are listening to ask more questions. I think we'll be asking questions for a long time, much like the steroid era, but there was a championship won here, and there's a lot of really pissed off Bellingers out there around baseball. It's very, very obvious, right?
Yeah, it's inflamed people to a degree that I think maybe not even the steroids era did, Well,
they were all in on that, right? That was
exactly that. I think that was a big part of it. It spread across baseball, different teams. So this one's very different, and you're right. The level of vitriol from opposing players is pretty much unprecedented, and I think that there's a chance that things will die down a little bit when games start in spring training, and there's something else to talk about, right? But right now we're still at that point where position players are still showing up to camps, and each one of the prominent guys is getting asked about this. Yesterday it was Mike Trout and Justin Turner. Today it might be Aaron Judge. We still haven't heard from Carlos Beltran or Alex Cora. So at some point they're going to talk, and it's going to kick back in again. The penalty for the Red Sox is coming down the pike here probably by the end of next week. So there's still tentacles to this, and that's not to even mention what new reporting is going to come out. And that is where I think Major League Baseball and the Astros have to be really worried.
Well, I have been very, very bothered by the tone set by ownership here in Baltimore over the years, right? From my Free the Birds now 15 years ago to, just how they handle people in the aftermath of strikes and World Series and giving away Manny Machado and how you would treat fans. And then I see what the Astros have done here in the last 2 weeks. There's a special kind of tone deafness, right? For the owner to step up in front of everyone and say it had nothing to do with us winning. I guess that's the part that's making me even itchier in all of this is how you handle getting caught with your pants down, how you handle getting caught cheating, how the league is going to handle it, how the competitors in the league are going to handle it. But also, I go back to the policemen and where Manfred is in all of this and where Crane is, the people that really run the game. I'm going to be at the NFL owners meetings in a couple of weeks. How the game is being run. Some thoughts about that and how uppity other owners might be about how this is going down and how it's affecting market X in city Y and franchise Z.
Well, first of all, it's been a PR disaster. In many ways. To be honest with you, I was there when the Astros apologized. I thought the players ranged from really, really good, from Carlos Correa, to mediocre, which was sort of Alex Bregman, but they were completely torpedoed by their owner. If the owner never opens his mouth on Thursday, this thing looks a lot different right now. But the owner went out there on camera in front of everybody, the press conference setting, and claimed that this didn't affect the games. The trophy is completely legitimate. Players didn't deserve to be punished. I didn't deserve to be held accountable. That was a PR disaster for the franchise. It has.
How does that happen, though? You know what I mean? There's a willful ignorance in that. that we saw represented in our, the U.S. Congress a couple weeks ago as well. But I would say that says to me that Jim Crane's not going to listen to anyone. He's a billionaire,
Well, that's the thing.
like literally, and that's kind of where the NFL owners were a couple years ago with the knee and Jerry Jones, right?
Yeah, it is. There are real similarities there, parallels. I think it is a sense of invincibility where, I don't have to be accountable to anybody. I mean, he's a successful, wildly successful businessman. I think, people in that position often have never been told no and don't have anybody around them to tell them you can't do that, and so there's just not that sense of shame or, there's not that sense of accountability. So I think that's what you saw, and unfortunately, I think that harmed the players. And I'm sure the Astros players won't bash their owner for obvious reasons, but I think privately they would probably tell you, we're kind of mad that the owner, did that because it set the tone for the entire day and made us all look bad. Now, baseball also has this PR crisis, which Rob Manfred is trying to contain, but unsuccessfully. At the heart of this matter is labor law, and the fact that Major League Baseball granted immunity to the players was somewhat of a necessity, a nod towards labor law. They would have been met with grievances from the union at every turn. There are legalities here, such as giving notice to the employees about penalties and punishments. And that was not done because if you remember in the report, Jeff Lunau and A.J. Hinch, neither one relayed the contents of the September 2017 memo banning this sort of electronic sign stealing thing. They did not relay those penalties and instructions to the players. So there is a legal stance for the players to stand on to fight grievances and almost certainly win. Okay, but what Major League Baseball could have done is fight that fight anyway, just for the PR value of saying we tried to punish the players, we lost in the courts because of grievances and labor law. But that they come out of that looking a lot better publicly than they do now, which is, well, we knew we couldn't win that, so we didn't punish the players. Oh, and look, they're punished anyway because they've had to stand there and answer these questions.
Yeah, standing and answering the questions when you get to keep the ring, keep the money, do all of that. I'm sure this is going to WWE up every Jose Altuve at bat on the road for the rest of his career, as it probably should. But I keep saying, what did Manfred do wrong, right? So, how could this have been handled differently? Clearly a better relationship with the Players Association, clearly not banishing guys like Adam Jones off in the, not the prime, but let's say the sale of their career off to Japan or whatever, and saying we're not going to value players over 30 at all, and, we're going to beat them up in the secondary market. All of the war that they've been warring about since Jackie Robinson, or maybe since Ty Cobb, quite frankly, with owners and players. This is the bubble up of what can go wrong here when things can't be policed, and now Manfred's going to try to step in and police it. What's going to happen here? Like, if nothing else happens, I can't imagine that the other owners in baseball don't have something to say privately to Rob Manfred about how this was handled, or that it doesn't affect his leadership in some way moving forward.
Yeah, there's a quandary there for sure. And I mean, what could baseball have done? Well, we know now that vacating the World Series title was on the table at one point. In fact, it was widely discussed internally as an option. Rob Manfred ultimately decided against it because of precedent, and he said, his quote was something along the lines of, to set a precedent like that, it had better be, you better have great reason to do it. And you could argue that this was a great reason to do it. You don't have to go and award the title to the Dodgers. You don't have to award it to the Yankees or anybody like that. You could just vacate the title. There was no World Series champion in 2017. That's how history could have recorded it. And, there was no World Series champion in 1994 either. So there is precedent for, not having a World Series champion. So they could have done that. I think that would have placated a lot of people. certainly the teams that the Astros beat along the way in 2017. What else could they have done? I mean, you could have banned them from the postseason play for 2 years. That's something you see done in the NCAA and things like that.
Now you get no players to sign up to play there, though, right? I mean, that would literally take them back to
absolutely.
40 and 122, right?
Absolutely. And let's just also say that what if there are credible allegations out there that we haven't heard about or that we've only speculated about other teams, including teams that the Astros beat in the 2017 World Series, and that haven't come to light because there wasn't a whistleblower like Mike Fiers. So, I think there could be a danger there of giving something to a team that lost to the Astros, but that may have been doing something themselves. Certainly we know that the 2018 Red Sox were doing something. Did that just start in 2018 with Alex Cora coming on board? Had it been there all along? There are gray areas here that unfortunately we just don't know about that complicate this whole picture.
And that's what's keeping you from writing more music and covering more Olympics and having more fun here in Baltimore. Dave Sheinin joining us from the Washington Post. I'll catch up with you on your music career and, the Elias Meidel connections to Baltimore. More reporting will be done, I'm sure.
Exactly.
More questions will be asked, and, more games will be lost here in Baltimore for the Orioles. I'll talk about real baseball with you next time, maybe, okay? We'll see what happens, all right?
That would be great. All
right, man. Keep making the great music. We'll stay in touch. Thanks for coming on, Dave.
All right, buddy. Anytime.
Dave Sheinin down in Florida, not soaking up the sunshine, but soaking up all things Astros and Astrogate and spring training 2020. Who knew? Guys wearing wires to learn what's a fastball and what's a slider. We're in a new world, kids. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. The Baltimore Positive stuff we've been doing. Very proud of that work with Don Moeller, former Baltimore County executive. You can find it at Baltimore Positive. You can find it in our morning newspaper, all powered up by Planet Fitness. You can find it at WNST.net on the Baltimore Positive little box on the right side. Just say hello, toss me a note. We're out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. Streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube, WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST. Baltimore Positive. We never stop talking about those cheating Astros and maybe how it'll affect the Orioles one day.